They used to say, hey, multi-vendor scenario is great because if one, if you're with Checkpoint, they're having a problem, that's okay. Powell's got something, and Cisco's got something, and Microsoft, and you're going to layer on approach.
Right.
But you're going to implement all those 10% of the way because your team doesn't know how to do it.
Hello, and thanks so much for tuning into Blue Square Security, a podcast hosted by your Microsoft Digital Security Specialist team. This week, we have a conversation with Mike Callahan, CEO of CyberGen. Our conversation takes us through a number of different topics such as security assessments, the evolving threat landscape, zero trust, and compliance. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Mike, why don't you just take a couple of minutes and get the CyberGen story squared away and just kind of tell us who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Sure. So I'm CyberGen. I'm the founder. We are a professional services organization. I'm 12 years old. We're headquartered in South Florida, but I have offices around the world. Offices in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Egypt, UAE, Romania. Opening up in Lima, Peru, August, September timeframe, and then obviously the United States. So we typically we're not public facing. We're going to change that up a little bit this year. What I mean by that is some of your top IT organizations in the world, they sell it and hand it to us to deliver it because we're the guys who know how to make it work. I'm good in my wheelhouse. Most of our leadership's military, ex-military. We're good at getting stuff done. If it's complicated for everybody else, it's really not for us. Competitive advantage is our whole slogan's one team, as we're good at building that bridge between IT organizations that sell and comfort customers that want things, and we're the people that make it work. So,
and if you had to kind of describe the average CyberGen customer, can you fit them into a little bit of a mold like that, or are they kind of all over the lot?
All over. We have customers that have 100,000 employees that are high-end infrastructure related stuff and cloud, and then we have customers that have 400 employees that are managed security services. We're going all over. We do everything from the desktop to the cloud, and we usually are white labeled. So because we run 24/7, we've taken on all those things: software development, AI, managed infrastructure, security. Right now, that we're just a problem-solving company, and we do it 24/7. So when your U.S. company is going to sleep, my offshore team's coming on their day shift. So the work never stops. The benefit of that is you don't show up on a Monday morning, oh my God, nothing's working. Well, we're just proactive. My IT teams don't come into oh my God, Wednesday morning customers are down, because the day shift in Bangladesh has already been working on that system, on their daylight hours, doing the right thing. So we tend to close the gap. If a customer says, I need this done in a year, it's usually 2-3 months for us, because we're 24/7, 365, closing that project gap. Or if it's incident response, a lot of people in IR outsource to us because they like the fact that the work doesn't stop. That's our probably biggest selling point in our people.
Yeah, well, the flip side of that is the threat actors certainly don't follow any type of schedule. They're always after anyone and everyone. So a follow the sun model, I think, is kind of the standard, or should be the standard. So you've been in security for quite a while.
I've been in technology 30 years, and security wasn't a thing when I got into it. Had some cool stops: Duke University, Bayer Pharmaceutical. I think Bayer, we had 135,000 systems and 2 firewalls, and I ran infrastructure, and I couldn't tell you where those firewalls were because we never logged into them. They weren't necessary. That was mid-90s.
Yeah.
Microsoft, that was an early MCSE, NC 4.0 in early 90s. So I got my start, and I used to wear the little pin, but that's the only credential I had. So I was like, look, I'm an MCSE. I would just not talk in meetings. So the people thought I was intelligent, but the truth is I didn't have any answers. So it worked.
Dating yourself a little bit there with the pins.
Yeah. Well, I've got no hair and grandkids, so it kind of works that way.
So if you look back on this span of 30 years, and not just technology, but kind of focusing in a little bit on security, I think back to my shorter stint in security and how quickly and complex the security landscape has changed. Is there one area of security that you either just find fascinating, you find scary, or you just never, had the forethought to say, "Oh, that's going to be a thing."
Well, I will tell you that it doesn't slow down. Hardened endpoint's important because most IT companies don't know IT. So if you can catch most of the stuff on a hardened endpoint and keep your users from accidentally walking in the door, that's important. So email, security, Office 365, hardened tenants, important because you have a lot of IT companies that aren't that great. I hate to say that, but they're not security focused. If you go buy cloud something that does 90% of it and you're an IT company, you may get your customer 90% of the way. Because most of them, they click, 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 things work. They don't really know how they click and things work. So they're getting their customers half the way. Microsoft tailors on that. They can do, they're smart engineers and make it easy. Helps most companies. Where I see our future going, and we have an AI division, is all the threat intel that comes in. Millions of packets a minute with these companies. You can't, the raw data so much, you just can't absorb it, break it down, unpack it, check it. And all our AI projects from my AI team is just focused on that stuff. How do you threat and vulnerability management? How's it really work in real time packets? How do there's not enough man hours to train people fast enough. There's not enough people out there that have 20+ years of real world experience and know how to do things still. How do you train the threat landscape faster than people attacking it? That's our AI division.
So AI is such an interesting topic and could certainly go down a rabbit hole as far as just that one component of security. But it is one that is extremely interesting and probably extremely malleable. With all the stuff that Microsoft has been doing lately, it's hard to talk about AI and Microsoft in the same sentence without talking about Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Just because of the investment and our small part in that. Does CyberGen leverage either Chat GPT or some kind of OpenAI platform that is leveraged inside the business that you deliver to customers?
So our AI team, we take out like use cases where we can affect use cases. We have stuff with the insurance industry. We have stuff with I can't tell you the customers' names. We have stuff in the restaurant industry, the legal industry, but we like Chat GPT. We like OpenAI, obviously. I think that Google's covered their pants down too fast, and Microsoft just consumed it. Everyone will catch up. There are some open source AI projects that they think will be faster. I don't see that happening. Just like Linux was going to be the thing when Red Hat came out. It has, but then everyone repackages it, calls it their own thing now, right? So everything had a Linux background. It's now repurposed to something else. So I think Microsoft, and this is not because I'm an early MCSE, you guys just took over everything, and you guys own the data centers from a security perspective. You own email. Now if you were an old exchange admin, I'm not sure why you're still doing that, because it should be in the cloud. Why leverage that inside? Why have the threat and risk of an email server getting compromised?
It's amazing how many times we have those conversations and people are still on-prem. I mean,
I think it's foolish. I think it's engineers trying to hold on to their jobs rather than do the right thing for their customers and their company.
Yeah.
Not realizing they can transition into something that'll help their company better. So we like Chat GPT. There's a lot of training in it, a lot of learning in it. I think our differentiator is our, PhD level data scientists. Our think tank my guys are great. I'm just lucky to have a great team. And the use cases are incredible. We have accountant friends, I've got attorney friends, I've got doctor friends, I've got family in the medical profession. Like, you need to adopt or be left behind.
You mentioned the threat signals, and that's one where it kind of puts an asterisk in my head as far as wanting to mention some of the highlights that Microsoft brings to the table. And when we were doing this, we were doing a presentation internally, I don't know, about a month ago, and we were talking about just threat intelligence and, how do you go to market with it? What are the highlights that we bring to the table? What's interesting to customers? And one of the things was the amount of threat signals that Microsoft is churning through on a daily basis. About a month ago, they were publishing 24 trillion signals a day. And when we got an updated document that was kind of giving us new statistics, less than a month ago, we're up to 74 trillion signals a day. But you also mentioned, to kind of segue here a little bit, is, we've got email, we've got cloud, we've got X, we've got Y. When we think about the history of Microsoft, when you go back to Microsoft updates, I mean, that is probably one of the very first cloud computing components. And our threat library goes all the way back to pretty much the beginning. And it's amazing to me that you can even publish a statistic like that. I mean, 74 trillion a day is just such a mind-blowing statistic. What are your SOC, NOC, and people that follow the sun? Where are they pulling signals from, and how are they automating that amount of data? Because I mean, even saying it out loud, it's such a large number. It's hard to wrap your head around.
We look at, so a couple of things. First, it's impossible. It's just impossible. So if everyone's saying that they see all that data and understand it in real time, it's impossible. That's where our AI projects are coming in. We've looked at, everyone's got their new SIM SOAR thing. What we look at is we have the best people. So we have a SOC that's staffed 24/7, and we're using AI to ingest data wherever we can ingest it and see it and read it. And everyone's got their flavor of SOC, SIM, SOAR, whatever they want to use. Where most of them fall down is none of them are implemented or watched properly. That's it. It's like having the best alarm system on your house. You spend all this money on it, and then you leave to go out of the country and you leave your garage door open and don't set it. That's basically what happens in security. Installations, any implementations, they're just not done 100%. Everyone's bought 40 different tools. None of their internal engineers know how to master any of them. They don't have time for it. And then there's another tool, another thing. Where I think Microsoft's competitive, its competitive advantage. And I'm not saying because I'm on this Microsoft, is it allows the engineer to catch up with his workload. You guys see the email of the world from multiple companies. So if you do that, you can see threat actors from countries all around the world. Your SIM the same way, your endpoint the same way. You guys own the desktop, Azure, AD integrated everything. So you own MFA. There's so many things you could just say, oh yeah, they got this, and yes, they got that. Where you guys can get a good company 90% of the way, and then you add AI on top of that, and all your threat intel. That's where the problems are. Because we got organizations with Fortune 100 organizations down to 100, 200, 300 person organizations. We come in for instant response after they've had a problem. It's typically they own tools, they just don't know how to implement them or have the time to.
Are you advice? Are there tools you like to use? Your guys like to use that? Hey, yeah, you got it. Yeah, we can do it. But this is going to make your life simpler. Are you making any recommendations to your customers?
Typically, our company's more of a top IT companies of the world sell, and we deliver. So, how does that work? We sell about 30% direct, about 70% is partner led. So we are the hands and feet professional services organization of the company. So we'll be white labeled and come in as the XYZ company. So we're they used to call us Captain America, flies in the middle of the night, picks everything, flies back out. Yeah. That's more of our business model, but we do it 24/7 for people. So that puts us in a unique position because we see everything. Do we have preferences? Sure. Can I tell you that, they used to say, hey, multi-vendor scenario is great because if one, if you're with Checkpoint, they're having a problem, that's okay. Palo's got something, and then Cisco's got something in Microsoft, and you're going to layer on approach.
Right.
But you're going to implement all those 10% of the way because your team doesn't know how to do it. So I'm going to walk in your garage door that's wide open on any one of those platforms and come right in the door. So
it's a good analogy. I mean, and it's so easy to do too. I mean, anybody in technology, and we were just talking about this last week, that if you're in technology, not even just security, but if you're in technology, you're wearing multiple hats. And part of the strategic thinking, the CISO role, the CIO role, is to get the talent that you have to focus in on their role. And that's not an easy thing to do because you've got to, you got to address life as it happens. And in our world, life is increasing threats and increasing signals. So you're having to get more out of your people that maybe they were hired as XYZ title, but it's XYZ plus now. Are you guys seeing that as a solution provider, or is that more on the internal side?
No, we see that typically, like in our managed security, managed infrastructure, managed service approach, we're a co-managed solution. So we'll sit down with a company and find out their weak points. Typically, the internal staff's like, oh my God, this company's going to replace them. And we're not. Or we're coming to just augment their blind spots because they can't get all the work done. It's impossible. And because we have over 150 engineers, I have someone on my bench or on my team that has a senior level experience in whatever they're using. Anything from AI, software development, infrastructure, Microsoft, Cisco, Palo, Checkpoint, VM, whatever they're using. You just can't keep that bench in house for a company that has 25 or 10 or 15 or 30 people that cover that whole landscape, right? Well, we have that 24/7. So it allows us to come in and co-manage a solution with a company and look at the blind spots and just help them. And it doesn't go so well sometimes. The internal staff's like, I'm getting my job outsourced. I'm like, no. There's not enough you as it is. There's, you don't have 90 hours a week and you have 10 employees, each need 90 hours a week. We'll go in there and help them maybe do some tools consolidation and then come in and maybe I'm like, look, you guys do the 8 to 5, we'll do all your nights and weekends work so you can go home with your family at night. Because during that time in India, it's their daytime. My team will happy to do the night stuff, and during their day shift, you guys get a good night's sleep. So
That's an interesting component, and I don't want this to be completely a sales conversation, but I mean, you know my background, and I came from a partner, and we were selling professional services. And when you sit down with a decision maker as an MSP or MSSP, there's always that conversation in the back of your head that, maybe the people outside the conference room are looking at you as somebody that's replacing them, or coming in as a threat to them. How do you get over that obstacle? Because it probably is one of those unspoken things that when you bring a partner in, it causes some strife. And I'm assuming you encounter that on a daily basis. How do you guys address that?
So for us, our slogan's one team, and we mean that at our core. We're there to build a team together. We look at IT as we're all the National Football League, but we all play to win this championship together, not the different, football teams in the different conferences. And we mean that at our core. Typically though, what will happen is engineers are like, oh my God, this guy's gonna replace my job. And we try to be non-threatening. First thing we typically do is just document everything so that and then we give access to all the information, everybody that's, has that security level have it. So that whether you like our service or you want your own people, that the C-level understand everything's documented, all their passwords are safe, what their diagrams, their network looks like, what things actually do. And that's important because in the IT industry, you'll start talking to guys that really talk way over your head. And of the 30 years I've been into this, the people that do that don't know what they're talking about. They're just information siloing to make them sound really intelligent so you can't replace them. What we do is we take that off the table and say, look, you're smart guys, we're smart guys, we're gonna help you. Let's just document everything first, get it organized together and see where we can help. Maybe
And
we
how
can.
often do you go into, Acme Corporation for an initial assessment and you start the documentation process asking for their documentation, find out that they've got little to no documentation
Every time.
every time?
Every time, or that's just outdated because they're, again, too many tools, not enough hours in the day, you can't keep the lights on as it is. And then you're saying, oh, by the way, document everything you've just done. And
Yeah,
keep it
that's a tough
updated.
spot.
So are you, to get that baseline, are you guys doing some sort of security assessment or anything like that?
Well, usually depends on the engagement, because if we're gonna do security, we'll usually do a security assessment using the CIS controls and kind of match it up to the framework they use. So we'll go in and do a security assessment just to get a baseline. And most of that's a virtual security assessment where we're gonna communicate over a couple 1-hour conference calls with your team and our team just to kind of get a baseline and a security maturity schedule of where you're at. And it's confronting. I can't tell you how many companies are like, oh, this is boring. Why are we doing this? I don't want to really answer this question. Or how many companies are like, and I'm not going to use names there, but there are countries we've done it for where their CISO for the country was like, we're the best place in the world. We've got this. We set the standard for the country. And when we're done, they're bad shape. And we're talking about CISOs for countries and companies, and small to big. Because there's
Right.
so much data and questions and things you don't think about. But it gives them baseline where there are maturity schedule. We map it to whatever their security requirements they're under, if any. And then from there, we're like, look, here's the top 10 things I would do this year, because here's the things maybe you already own. Let's just fix them. And that'll get you 80% of the way. And then, so we'll build that 1, 3, 5 year plan for them, because there's not enough people or money. That's usually the time and money. They don't have enough time and enough money to do it all. Or in some cases, they just don't know what all of it is. So we'd like to start there, because then we can go through and say, here are the things you're doing well. Here's the things you didn't know existed. You could be doing well. Here's some of the tools you own. We'll just make them talk together and integrate them properly. Just some labor, it's not going to cost you any more money. In fact, we'll teach your team how to do it. And here's the things that we recommend doing right now, because if not, you're going to get hit with a ransomware and your backups are encrypted. So we'll see things like that, because we do instant response to. We're like, hey, look, where are your backups? Oh, they're on the same network as your servers. Well, that means your servers get hit, your backups get hit, you pay the ransom, whether you're small or big. Okay, wait, so let's fix that quickly. How do they get in the door? How do your users, walk through? What's your physical security like? It's a lot of it's, we uncover a lot and look at the low-hanging fruit that they should be doing now. Like, do this immediately, do this in 90 days, do this over 12 months. You have to wait because you don't have time or budget. Do this over, 3 to 5 years. So kind of a get well plan.
That's kind of a good segue into, and I guess this is kind of a loaded question. So, you talked a lot about companies leveraging a growing number of tools, and we've all been in security for a minute, and I think that's a problem that was created when the best of breed approach was kind of shoved down everybody's throats. And now we've got all these tools, and I've heard you say a couple of times where you come in and you make these tools talk to one another and integrate AI with these, and hopefully automate it and take some of the day-to-day mundane tasks away from a user and give them a little bit of their time back. How much of that implementation and integration is leading you and your customers to a consolidation question? Because at Microsoft, to use our language, we have a slogan of do more with less. Because when our E3 to E5 customers truly take advantage of what they have, if they really evaluate the number of tools that they have some redundancies, and not in a good way. Is that a conversation that your customers are starting to adopt, or is that one that kind of scares them a little bit?
We may force it on them, to be honest with you, because we come in and it's like, if you have problems that you can't fix, you don't have enough talent here. You have 8 engineers, you want them to know 42 things and be great at it, or do you have the time? So it used to be best in breed and a layered approach with multiple companies, but nobody has time to implement all that stuff. I mean, it's the same thing as you leave for the weekend to go on a golf outing and you leave your garage door open, don't set the alarm you have. We do so much penetration test and incident response. We just walk in the front door. You left your garage door open. You got amazing external security, it's fine, but you don't have your endpoints hardened. I just throw a bunch of USBs that say payroll data in the parking lot. Someone walks right in, plugs it in their computer, and I'm in the network. Have to be credible.
Yeah.
I put a bunch of cool looking USBs in your parking lot that says payroll data. I mean, people are gonna walk down the front door and say, "What is this thing?" I'm gonna take it home and put it in my laptop because I'm at home. No one will know. Then I want to see how much everyone gets paid, and I'm in your network. I don't have to do anything ingenious. I could just send you an email. It looks like Bank of America, and they're gonna open it up and provide me your credit card data.
So here's another, I don't want to call it a loaded question, but it kind of is a loaded question. So I threw an article to both Driggers and Vitali yesterday that was from a LinkedIn group that I joined, and it was cybersecurity professionals, something like that. And it was the top 10 threats of the last 12 months.
Yep.
And the one thing that I found interesting of these top 10, some of them were pointing you to articles saying, all right, this is the big thing, AI, the problems that it brings. But I would say 7 out of 10 were iOS or Apple related or were Android related. Now, I understand that that's more end user focused, but as we sit here on this call, we've got you who's been in the industry for 20 plus years. I'm coming up on 20 years. The other two guys at Microsoft have been here for quite a while. There's a lot of knowledge here. And if you look at the headlines of just the vulnerabilities over the last 10 years, because Windows dominates so much of the market with servers and desktops, and we're not in the mobile space anymore, but there's such a big presence of Microsoft out in the business space. It used to be the norm to hear, well, there's a Microsoft vulnerability, there's a server vulnerability, there's a PC vulnerability. But then to see this article talk about the last 12 months and Windows wasn't mentioned at all. And some of them were articles, but zero mention of Windows. Do you think that's an evolvement of Microsoft security? Do you think that's a rapid adoption of end users grabbing the attractive Apple products? Or what is your take on not having Windows in that full article?
Well, I would say that from my old friends, I'm not going to go into the old bull, young bull approach, but you know the conversation. I would say that Microsoft, if I was a young guy and starting a business, and I feel young, by the way, but if I was starting a business and it's going to be software development, I would say Microsoft owns the desktop. Let me build some app for Windows because 90% of the market's owned by Microsoft, maybe more, maybe less, I don't know. So I'll build it for that thing. And it's going to be this middleware thing, and I have an opportunity to make more money there. So Microsoft's had to have this platform that supports all these 1-2 person development shops all over the world, right? And then you got this stuff that there's no quality control test, full dev cycle, and they throw it out on some company buys it to put it on this Windows server or desktop. It's not secure. It's a middleware that the company needs. And then they expect Microsoft, its platform, to not be vulnerable, even though the third-party one-person development company built it, right? So the ask was too much. And I would say from NT Server to Windows 2000, the knowledge of what you needed in the hardware inside of to build a Windows server, was just easier. You could kind of build itself and patch itself. So you could have engineers that weren't that good that just let it kind of build itself and wouldn't patch it. You could see the adoption, coming over time and releases, and then as you get through the exchange problems and stuff, and then consume more and more, and engineers could through a wizard GUI install things and kind of make it work, but not make it work right, just kind of make it work. I know that as a MCSE from NT40, I had to learn the hard way when there's only a handful of us. And I think it was 27 floppy disks to install it and try to make this thing work. And I was just out of the military, green and very stupid. So
you're not going all the way back to punch cards, are you?
Yeah, a long time. So the thing is, there wasn't like, if you do this, it's going to work. You have to do it this way to work all the time this way. So Microsoft had gotten a name of, it's not stable in the early days, but simply it was they had bad engineers that could install it and kind of make it work. But nothing in computers are to kind of work. There's a right way and a wrong way. Unfortunately, back in those days, you could install it in the wrong way and kind of make it work. Or you look at a Linux box, you couldn't kind of make it work. You just could make it work or you couldn't, and it worked or it didn't.
Yeah, on
or off. So you had to be really good to install it. It was very complex, and you had to install it properly. That's why they got a better name early on. Now as Microsoft's progressed in their tool sets, they don't, you guys are just good. If I was an old exchange admin, I still had an exchange in house, and you're still running internal and exchange, it's because your IT department doesn't want to be without a job. That's it.
Yeah,
That
no,
isn't you know, back in NT server days, and there used to be WinFrame, MetaFrame with Citrix, and this remote desktop thing was new, and you guys gave it away in Windows 2000. You know, you guys eat so much that eventually the tool sets are automated. So if you take that into your security, you take that in the Active Directory, it was an Azure AD now, and a cloud play, and your SIM and endpoint, and the amount of data you're eating and ingesting from companies around the world, it's hard to not do that.
well, that brings up an interesting point, and I wish we could get to the point in time where COVID was no longer part of conversations, but it kind of changed the way we talk about things. Because one, it's a point in time that we can all kind of reflect back to and say, yes, I remember 2020 because it was the COVID years. But you've mentioned a couple of times that you've got offices now all over the globe, headquartered there in Florida, and you've got a U.S. presence, obviously, but when you've got a global workforce and those span across size, need, timing, all the things that a global workforce represents, how does a technology service solutions company architect being able to stay in communication with all of these people in all these different time zones and possibly, I'm assuming, different languages? How do you guys address that from just a workforce standpoint?
Honestly, Azure AD, VDI from Microsoft, Office 365, and email services. We started consolidating the Teams, and Teams phone got pretty good. Still some issues here and there, but just consolidation. I can geolocate people where they live and what region and which tenants they come into. And we have virtual desktops that are based on your need, your region, the world, your tool sets. Azure AD, all of the tool sets, so you can't get into them unless you're in your VDI. And it keeps our threat landscape to zero.
And is that one where last time we talked, which really wasn't all that long ago, but I hadn't heard some of the new countries you mentioned as far as what CyberGen now represents. Does that give you the ability to kind of scale as needed? I mean, are you kind of turning things on and turning things down?
Yeah, speed. So I don't, in our offices, we have our own ruggedized, like our hardware in the offices, but they could be dumb terminals and with fast internet, to be frank with you. When COVID hit, they were just a VDI, take your equipment, go home. They're still coming in through our US 10, and you still have to multi-factor authenticate. You still got to use your authenticator to get in. You can't get your email on your phone unless you have it's encrypted. Everything was just easy, speed. We didn't have to adapt, because we look at our internal IT stack as we want to be as serverless as possible, and we want to spend time working on customers instead of being our own customer, right? Working on client systems instead of working on our systems. If I look at the office cost and overhead of maintaining all our infrastructure, it would not outweigh the idea of letting you guys do it. Now, we do have some AWS web services out there that we do for some of our open stacks, but it was just easier, speed.
Yeah.
And I could take security and move it here and leverage your guys for it. And I can pay it on a monthly basis. I don't have to buy at every single, I don't have to, obviously with your pricing model, we turn it up and turn it down, turn it up and turn it down. The way the onshore, offshore, nearshore model is now, I need 200 more people, I need 50 less. I pay more as I use it. Speed.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Most of your other companies, you're gonna big technology investment, and then you may lay off your employees in 6 months and have a bunch of old computers sitting there.
Well, we keep talking about employees, and they get mentioned a lot, and obviously they're the boots on the ground. But as we look at some of the headlines that we're all reading right now, there's been a lot of, I even hate saying it out loud, there's been a lot of layoffs inside the tech industry. and the three of us are obviously fortunate enough to still be here at Microsoft. But when you look at the talent that's required to execute a true well-oiled machine in the world of security, are you seeing a shortage? I know the statistics are saying globally there's like a double-digit shortage of talented security professionals. Considering you employ these people and then you put them in front of customers, is that a challenge that CyberGen faces, or are you retaining enough of your talent over the years to where you guys are kind of in a comfortable spot?
Our leadership's been the same for years. We're very good with we're a people first company. What does that mean? My job is to take care of my people. And it's also my job to make sure they're taking care of me because I'm taking care of them, which means they're taking care of our customer. I'll be the first to terminate a customer if they're not taking care of my people also, they're not treating them well. Because I hold, we didn't invent Facebook, we didn't invent some cool tool. We are people driven. Our business is as good as our people. Our customers are satisfied based on our people. Our employees are doing a great job. So we pay above market share. Most of my employees, I know their families. We've grown, I know their kids. In other parts of the world, my wife's from Eastern Europe, so we have stuff there. I know the dynamics of their religion. And CyberGen, we probably have we'll probably speak 30 languages in our company now. Just about every religion we can think of that I would think of as represented. We come together in this mesh of just, global that just builds such a powerful presence. We have our stand-ups on our teams calls every morning, and just the cultural bonds between our people. You guys may not know this, but Pakistan had a unrest yesterday in their country. And my guys in parts of the world were like, you know what? We got your work today. Take care of your families. Guys from the UAE, got my guys from Egypt, guys from Bangladesh, guys here in the States. We take care of your family first, we take care of the work. We have that family team building approach. So, but we're selective of who we hire because we want that culture. We look at automation and tool sets that's why, our AI team came about, automation tool sets, because there's not enough talent. And then it's not really not enough talent, also people that care as much to have enough talent. As an engineer for years, I worked 80, 90-hour weeks. And I did amazing projects around the world. Made a tremendous amount of money, but there's a point where the money doesn't matter really. You want to be able to go play some golf. I like to surf, so I want to go surf. But hang out with my kids, go to the ball games. So there's a point where the work is so much you can't do that. So it took a while, but our 24/7 team was simply so that I could work my shift and we could rotate, they could work their day shift and their day shift, and their day shift, and their day shift, and their day shift. And so that if we're rolling out something, everyone's fresh. They have work-life balance. I would say we're kind of an oddity that way. A lot of people don't know how to staff offshore. Like, hey, this guy's English isn't perfect. What you don't know is he speaks your language and 4 others, and has a PhD or a master's degree, and wants the same thing you want. He wants to pay his bills. She wants to pay her bills. Want to call, work-life balance. Take care of their families. Take care of their parents, right? Because a lot of these are, in the other parts of the world, their parents live with them and they support their parents as their parents supported their parents. So my job is honestly just living in the life of my people, making sure they love what they do.
Such a good answer.
Yeah.
Last year, took a project on, and honestly, the guy was one of the best in the world at it. I'm not going to go into the brand of it. It's a different brand, but very complex. And he was probably one of the only guys in the world that I know is experienced at it at a high rate. He's a unicorn, and for 2 years he was trying to get to go to Mecca. It's not my religion, it's his. And getting a visa approved for his mom and parents to go to Mecca for their pilgrimage. And this is probably a 10-year process for the pilgrimage to get approved. And finally, he didn't get approved, and a week before it, he got a special announcement. He got approved to go to Mecca. And we had not taken before we went to take this project on, I knew I needed him. And I didn't say yes to it until he figured out he wasn't going to get to go. And I was like, okay, are you sure? And then he got approved. And he's like, Mike, I know I've committed to this. I was like, look, what you need to do is take your mom. His father passed away. And you need to go to Mecca, spend a month. And the rest of my team picked that up and ran it like a machine. And I was thinking that town, it's such a unique thing, but the rest of my people, and it's not my religion. Now you have to understand that. And it's not my belief, but my belief in his life being great, is who we are, how we work. So
No,
you
it's
have to
good leadership.
That's my company.
No, I love
That's
it.
how we retain people.
And I'll kind of sprinkle on top of that with it, which is probably why you guys are such a good Microsoft partner, because our cultural outlook is so similar. It's, customers and people first. And, when we've got things that are important to us personally outside of work, it becomes important to our management, and they take an interest in that. And one of the many reasons I feel very blessed to be here. Vitaly, you had a question that you wanted to talk about zero trust, and I know that's one of those topics that could probably go down a rabbit hole, but I'll let Vitaly ask that question.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, right. Well, another buzzword, zero trust. That's the cyber industry is good at that. So, we have our way of defining it. Right. It kind of all starts with the identity with Microsoft, but, kind of how do you define zero trust? What are your thoughts on, the practice of implementing it? Kind of what do you see as the future there? It's a loaded 3-part question, I guess.
We're full of loaded questions.
Yes,
So
loaded
let's
in
see.
multiple parts.
Zero trust, least privilege.
Just in time, keep going.
Yeah, it's needed.
Yep.
It is difficult. There are some tool sets with some automation. There's quite a few different companies that are coming out with some things automated. The problem with zero, the company says I want to be zero trust. I really don't know what that means. So imagine you have 30,000 employees, and they've got all these servers in a couple data centers, 10,000 servers and apps, and they've had dev teams build this custom thing for them and something for that, and then the firewall team is saying, I need a firewall, we'll open it up, I need this, it's not working. I don't know how it works anyways, because this is one of the 40 tool sets I've got to manage. So, the last guy got it to work, so it works. So they just kind of like open up access, and then you've got the stuff going through the data center, right? Just high rate of speed. And they're just trying to make it work, because at some point it's 1 o'clock in the morning, they just need it to work. And then a year goes by, and that application gets terminated. They don't go back and clean up the source and destination. Some new app comes on, needs different access, uses the same thing, and it snowballs. And then some of the 20-year-old apps in the utility space that are still needed, and maybe they're even running on a Windows NT desktop because they still need them, but they're regulating your nuclear power plant. And they don't know how it works. They don't even have access to source code, but it does. And then they're saying, hey, now we got to document all that stuff properly and make it zero trust. So only least privilege has access to it. And biggest problem in the industry, in the data center, is it's what we call east and west lateral movement of traffic. Someone walks in, I don't know, Diane comes in and has this payroll data that she kind of found in the parking lot and puts it in her USB, because somehow we still have USBs unlocked in some of these companies. And it's got a ransomware on it, and it starts going across the whole company. And it hits her department, screen gets shut down, and they don't have security enforcement at any level to stop it. And it just keeps spreading and spreading and spreading. All of a sudden, all 10, 25, 8, 4,000 employees were hit with this thing, including their backups. Like nothing they can do about it but pay a ransom at this point. So zero trust tries to say, let's have some security enforcement so that this person can only talk to this person for this file with this access. And then let's take it down a step farther and say it's not people to people, it's app to app, token to token, so you take the humanity out of it, which is kind of good, because humans would make stupid mistakes. Like, I want to see what Greg gets paid. I got his payroll date I found in the parking lot. He's in my department. I bet he makes more than me. So
Going to worst case scenario right away. That's how we, as humans, that's how we operate.
Yeah.
That's it. So for 10 years, we've come up with all kinds of creative solutions with some of our customers, and I can tell you how many of them say, yeah, let's do that. And but amount of undertaking, something that has to happen to really make this successful. And to document every app. So that's important. Like this app talks to this app, and this user has to talk to this user, but not this user, but not this one or this one. So there's some really cool projects out there, really cool tool sets that are automating a lot of that. And we implement quite a few. We get hired to come and implement them. Biggest problem in cybersecurity in the enterprise isn't your edges anymore. As much as it was, you don't need a big firewall at the edge. It's you need to keep the users inside segmented so they don't accidentally cause damage to the other users inside.
Yeah,
That's
network
part of
segmentation. Yep.
that's part of our definition for zero trust, right? Always assume breach.
Yep. And it's not, I think it's the hacker in, Russia coming in. Yeah, it's true that you can buy a ransomware toolkit online in the dark web and you get paid a percentage of whatever the take is. You don't have to be good at it. You don't have to be some crazy developer, you just buy one online, unfortunately. And it's the mistakes that cause the problems and the accidents, not the, not the guy sitting in the dark web trying to hack into your computer from the outside.
The slip ups.
It's a slip ups, mistakes. Opening that email that looks like came from your bank. Everything
That
looks
looks
the same.
legit.
Looks legit. You're already entering your password reset because you need it, because otherwise you can't travel this week because your credit card's being put on fraud. Whatever. It looks legit, and you're in. So say zero trust, finding a way to automate it.
Yeah.
Bring it down to the user and the actual file level. I think that the biggest thing that'll come out of everyone's looking at Bitcoin and stuff, and I think using the technology as a security tool is probably its best use case. Blockchain, and then adding AI on top of it. So we're a token, like your money is now. Pulling the human person out of it so they can't accidentally make mistakes. I think that's where you see every company go in there. Let's AI to automate the tasks because there's just too many. So everyone's like, I'm worried about losing my job. Well, you couldn't do, what did you say, 27 trillion transactions a day? You can't do that humanly. It's humanly impossible for security transactions.
Yeah, I mean those numbers are so staggering. It even hearing it out loud makes my head spin a little bit.
Well, I think it becomes, we're going to help you focus on the most important of those, whatever, 67 trillion, whatever that number was you quoted.
So instead be the security matter expert, and let's let you look at the 1% that matters to be decision.
Exactly.
And keep
Yeah, but you've
decisions
got to
in that
have somebody
1%.
smart enough to be able to identify that 1% because there are just a sheer large number. So there's two more questions. The final question is one that's just kind of fun that we're going to try and ask everybody that sits in front of us, and it takes a little bit of creativity on your part. And I'll let Vitaly ask that one. But to bring it back to your discussion around your growth and your expansion into other countries, the one thing that comes to mind when I hear we've got a global presence or we've got a global workforce or we serve a global workforce is compliance. When you start to get into these other countries, whether it's to have staff or it's to serve your clientele, what restrictions, what obstacles, what roadblocks are you seeing from a compliance perspective?
Well, it depends on who our customer base. So there's certain customers that need US only or North America, for example. So I can have Canada and the United States, which we do. The NRC for the nuclear regulatory, they have certain access requirements. We also, so for us, it's just tailored to our customers' compliance, who is allowed to work on their projects. So that's probably the first thing that comes up when we are on a scoping call. What is your regulatory body? What is that compliance regulation that we have to adhere to? And really all that does is it doesn't change the talent, just changes the price point and how we support them. So some it could be they can access core data servers, but they can't access any data in the nuclear space, and some security segmentation. For others, they've got to be all, not just North America, but US only. And we had a client at one of my this was 4 months ago, one of my employees, he's in Dallas, actually he's in outside Houston, and he traveled to Mexico for the weekend and logged in his VDI, he was working on something, and obviously he got dinged because he's in Mexico. It was just actually working on a Saturday on something, but security popped up, saying, hey, who's this guy? He's in Mexico. Well, I can't tell his name, but he's, I'm not gonna share it here, but he was literally there on holiday and had some free time, was getting some work done. So it's one of those things, knowing your customer and what their compliance needs are, and then we tailor our solution that way. We try to do very much a hybrid in our pricing model to be competitive. What does that mean? If you need parts of things in the US, we keep them all in the US. Subject matter experts, but right now with the talent the way it is, we want the best person on that keyboard that's available, period. Because the cost of not having that person do the job properly outweighs the cost of any billable rate. And that may or may not be in the United States all the time. It may be in Canada, it may be in UAE. I've got an engineer there, quite a few. He's the one that after I started working with him, I was like, man, I never need to touch the keyboard again. This guy's just smarter than I've ever been.
Yeah.
I want
That's
that
one
guy.
of those. That's
Yeah.
one of those things around support when you start talking about tiered structures of support where, you got to meet a threshold before you get moved up. And I think that's where Microsoft has grown a lot, is adopting kind of models like you have implemented, is just put the best guy on it versus, I'm going to pass it to level 2 and then you're going to repeat everything you just talked about and spend that time to get caught up versus just handing it off to the most talented person that understands the problem and work to get it done.
Yeah, fix it immediately. Yeah. One of the things our service desk is getting our level 1s when they first start, because we'll start at level 1 and they'll get trained, is understanding, that's where most of your catchment comes in. Look, the end users, there's more of those than there are servers in the world. So most of your stuff is the easy lifting. I can't print, I forgot my password, that stuff. But they're the ones that engage with their customer the most. And they know the least. That's the entry point, right? So getting them, and we have a lot of automation that helps get rid of that stuff to make it easier, and it's proactive. But typically what happens in organizations is most of your inbound calls, customer interaction, is with your least experienced, because they're doing the easier IT stuff, but that's where more of your volume is. Customers can't print, they can't email, my screen's not working, my keyboard, my whatever. That's where 90% of the traffic comes in a service desk environment. So, and that's where your least experienced person is. So we try to, and we have a whole triage and dispatch thing we try to do before it comes in, so that it's assigned to the right person picked up within 15 seconds, within 2 minutes assigned to the right person. And then we track what we call hop counts. How many times does it have to hop to the right person to fix it? And see why people get performance bonus on fixing the problem the first time.
And as an end user, that is the most frustrating,
Yeah.
metric you could possibly have. I've been, call up your cell phone provider and you get, 9 different people to fix a very simple problem. It's like, could you really have,
So
consolidated that?
Yeah, we'll track hop counts, and then we'll look at, and we have a lot of AI that routes tickets properly, and some projects we're coming out with to do that, so that the problem's fixed quicker in the first time. We call that kind of triage and dispatch. How fast can we triage it and dispatch it to the person that has to do it? And then what can we give the users access to, where they can self-cure some of their own questions? Because that's where the frustration comes. Most of your calls are handled to the least experienced person, because that's where they're talking to end users. They've got to be customer focused. I communicate well. I'm thankful for my job, and thank you for calling in, Mr. Customer. How can I help you? And they're frustrated. They're saying, I can't print it, and my boss wants these things. They got to go on his desk, and I'm getting yelled at, and I just spilled my coffee, and on my way in on my lap in my car, and I got to take my kids somewhere, and they're dealing with that stuff, and trying to tell our L1s and stuff, be relatable. Like, they're calling you because whatever's going on right now is a pain for them. But biggest problem, and we try to, I think we have some AI projects out there, confidential, we're going to release here probably August 1. They're going to help a lot of that. something we're working, I think it'd be in the industry changers. And actually in the L1, L2 triage and dispatch and some self-curing. That way it's speed.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
With Nally, do you want to ask Callahan here the cookie cutter question that again, this takes a little bit of creativity on your part, and because it is, you sit at the top, maybe it doesn't exactly apply, but try and put on your creative hat for this one.
Well, we're gonna ask this to, or we have, but we're gonna ask this to all our guests. So just make you think a little bit. So you're the new CISO at your dream company, whatever that might be. What's your first move, a change, implementation? And you have 30 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. Take your time.
First move, I fly everyone in if I could, or a team's meeting to get to know everybody. I can typically, with 30 years in the industry, have about a 10-minute conversation with everybody and find out who they are in their life, identify their talents. I've got a pretty good leadership meter, so I understand when someone knows what they're doing and they do not, and how to put them in a position to win. That's it. My people. How fast can I figure out? First, safeguard them, because the first thing is, oh, my guy's going to bring his own people in and I'm going to get fired. So probably not.
Diminish the fear.
Yeah, so manage fear and get related with my people, find out who they are. Some of these people may have been there 30 years, 27 years, 42 years, 8 years. They know the company better than I do. That's it. Team meeting, some one-on-ones, they get to know my people. And then what's documented, so I know my networks, I know my tool sets, I know my vendors. And I can go through and say, all right, 90 days, we're gonna have the next meeting because now I'm educated.
Right.
And then let's get buy-in, and here's the things I like us to implement.
I find I don't know if the psychology is the right word, but I find the answer to this question from last week, where Byron represents a very, very large book of partners, and his answer to this question was, well, I'd probably bring in a partner to, help address XYZ. And then we talked to you, and you've mentioned your slogan, one team, a couple of times. And your answer is, well, I want to get to know my people one-on-one, diminish fear. And it just goes to, reinforce kind of what your methodology to your business is. And I find it fascinating that those answers coincide with both people's strong suits. So that's a fascinating answer.
Yeah. Well, I'm a technologist, so I may wear the hat of the CEO of my company, but I know the tech, so I want to know that my people know the tech. And then we've selected partners and tool sets based on not the best price or who was taking me out for the nicest meals, but what was the best solution. Because at the end of the day, I want work-life balance too. So if I can implement a tool set that's going to work and with a team that's going to love to do it and inspired, we all have an easy job. We just maintain the screens at that point. We look at IT just differently. I always tell my people, we need to treat our job as if we're the desk or chair they sit in. And when I first asked that question, they understand. I said, look, when someone came into their desk today, they put their coffee cup down on the desk. They put their purse away or their stuff down. They didn't say, man, I wonder if that desk is going to hold my coffee cup. It was just a tool of doing their business. They didn't think, boy, I hope that chair is going to hold me today. But people have to do that with their computer. Oh, I bet I can't print this week. Man, my password. So we try to take all that away. We want your technology to look like the desk. You didn't think that desk may not hold my cup of coffee, or the cup I poured my coffee into may not hold my coffee. You just do that routine. So we try to take the complication out of it, and we want your technology experience to be the same. It's not always that way, but most companies try to put themselves first. Let me show you this great technology thing we did. We try to make your technology get out of the way, and you just can do your job and enjoy yourself. Just like you didn't spill coffee out of your mug because you know it's holding your coffee in it. So a holistically a different approach.
That's a good analogy, and I'll probably look at my desk a little bit differently tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So final closing thoughts here. If somebody is looking to get in touch with CyberGen, how do they best go about doing that? Or if they want to connect with you, how do they best do that?
So I would go to cybergen.com. We got a new brand coming out, our new website's out. Best way to go to cybergen.com, cybergen.com. I'm accessible 24/7. I'm on there as well. You'll see on our About Us page. But also there's an 800 number. It's answered 24/7, 365. And if they say, hey, look, I want to talk to Mike, I saw him online. My people actually get me on the phone. I do have some gatekeepers, but we're not, our org chart isn't like that whole top-down structure where it's levels and levels and levels. We kind of look at the Knights of the Round Table in an org structure. That's meaning I sit as one of those people in that circle, and the idea gets thrown in the middle, and whoever picks it up, picks it up. So I'm also accessible. 155 employees, I'm still accessible. So they can email me, Mike, M-I-K-E, at cybergen.com. But probably the best way is, hit the 800 number, hit the website. They'll get to us pretty quick. So I won't be the bottleneck. There'll be a team of people to take care of them.
So that was Mike Callahan, the CEO of CyberGen. And we did cover a lot of ground here today. We talked a little bit about their leadership and their go-to-market strategy, how they cover from everything from desktop to cloud, his 30 years in technology. It was an interesting conversation. We appreciate Mike coming on today and hope you enjoyed this episode. And if there's something that you would like us to cover specifically, please do reach out to any one of the folks on the Microsoft security team. We would appreciate to hear from you. Thanks so much and enjoy your afternoon.
Shall we play a game?